Hello, welcome back to the Color Gemstone Academy. I am your instructor, Paul Deasy, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul Deasy Gemstones. Now, this is episode 7 in my question and answer series. So this is going to be all about questions that you've sent me, maybe comments that you've made to me, and I'm going to answer them to the best that I can. Now, remember, if you have not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a great deal. It doesn't cost you anything. I know it says subscribe, but it doesn't cost a penny. But it helps me continue doing these lessons and the question and answer series for you. So I'm going to get right to it and ask, before I get right to it, I've had a number of people that have been asking me lately, where can I get, especially loose gems? Certainly you know where you can go jewelry. People have asked me, where can I get good pearls? Where can I get this? Where can I get that? Continue to ask those questions. I'll answer to you privately on there. But I started to think, if we get enough subscribers and we grow this channel big enough, I might have a way to connect buyers with sellers of loose gemstones. I'm going to work on that for a little bit, but in order to do that, you have to get me more subscribers. So tell all of your friends too. All right, let's go into the question and answers for this week. Glenna O asks, and she was asking this after watching the Q&A episode 5 with Tom Elliott. He's not going to be with me this week, but he was with me last week. She says, regarding lab-created gems, does a jeweler have to disclose it is a lab-grown gemstone? Say the Queen of England commissions a royal crown and it is made with lab-grown gemstones. Since they are considered a real gem, would that crown be of a lesser value because the stones are lab-grown? Now, these are excellent questions, and maybe you have similar questions. Whenever I talk about lab-created gemstones, remember they have all the same physical, chemical, and optical properties that every gemstone has. The only difference is, instead of taking millions of years in Mother Nature to do it, it can be done in the matter of months in a laboratory. The one thing that I say, do they have to disclose? Yes, absolutely, undeniably. A gemologist, or especially somebody working in a jewelry store, is required to disclose anything that they do know about that stone, including if it is lab created. And I gave the example privately to Glenna when I said, you know, to say something is a Chatham emerald at a jewelry store is not simply enough, because a lot of people don't know that Tom Chatham has a company that does a lot of created different lab-grown gemstones. So yes, you need to disclose that it is laboratory created. Laboratory created doesn't mean it's cheap necessarily. I know that back in the day, I don't even know what it's going for now, a flawless eye clean emerald under 10 power magnification in a Chatham emerald was about $400 a carat wholesale. So now you double that if you're buying it at retail, and more than that if it's going to be with a jeweler. So you need to understand that. Now, the question about what if the Queen put it in the crown jewels? And I said to her, well, the Queen can have any jewels she wants, including ones that are really expensive, ones that are stolen, which the royal family did over hundreds and hundreds of years. Does it make it less valuable because it is a lab-grown gemstone? And my answer was no. It doesn't make it less valuable. In fact, the fact that it's part of the Queen's crown jewels would actually make it more expensive because, well, she wore it. And that's just the way that things work. If you remember Diana and her engagement ring, that beautiful sapphire, and the way that it was set, a lot of people started to knock off, even in cubic zirconias, that ring because the Princess of Wales was wearing that. So the answer is yes, if the Queen wore it, it's probably going to make it more valuable. Great. Okay, next on our questions I'm going to read here is from ProDab Paul. And he was watching the Q&A episode 5 with Tom Elliott part 2, as Glenna was. Says, thanks, Paul. Can you do an episode on peridot or fluorite? Thanks for all the great video content. Well, Paul, the answer is we've already done an earlier episode on peridot, and let me think which one that was. I think that was 26. I'll make sure that that's true. So I already did a lesson on the peridot. As far as fluorite, it is a very interesting gemstone. I don't necessarily love it in jewelry settings because it is a very, very low on the Mohs scale of hardness, but you can get around that in some ways. I have not yet done I have not yet done a lesson on the fluorite, but I will add that to the list and I'll get to it sometime in the future. Thank you so much for your input on that. Okay, next up, Sally H asks, also from the Q&A episode 5 with Tom Elliott, part 2. Always interesting. Will you ever be going out again to look for something new to you? Well, Sally, I know that your question pertains to the videos and pictures we show of us going to different mines all around the world, and do we plan on doing that again? Absolutely we do. Just like everything else was affected by the global pandemic called COVID, most of the times when Tom and I, or Judy and I, would go to all of these different mines around the world, it's because we met somebody, a contact, at one of the various gem shows that happen all over the world, from Hong Kong to Tucson, Arizona, to Las Vegas. All around the world we go to these places and we find new people and new sources, and some of them will invite us out to film that experience. So we plan on doing that again when things hopefully get somewhat back to relatively normal pre-COVID levels. All right, the next one here is not so much a question as it is a comment, and it's from Andrea H. And she says, I guess she was watching episode 40, which is the turquoise lesson, real, simulated, fakes, and wannabes. I loved my lesson with turquoise. Great job, Paul. I know how well you describe gems and their process from the Shop NBC days. Thanks very much. Well, it is my pleasure to do that for you, Andrea, and I still love to educate everybody on gemstones, and I will continue to do so through this channel. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, so our next question comes from a subscriber who goes by the name of Empress Talks, and she asks, I'm assuming it's a she because it's an empress, not an emperor. She watched Turquoise 101, which was episode 21. She said, I liked this video, very educational, never heard of Sleeping Beauty before. Wondering if stabilized turquoise loses its metaphysical properties. And this is an outstanding question. And I'm going to start my answer by saying I am by no means an expert in metaphysical properties of gemstones. There are people that actually do specialize in that. One of my friends, I always love to go to his booth in Tucson. Name escapes me. I'll put it up there when I remember. But he had all of these different gems and like perfect specimens of them. What I do know and what I can tell you is every gem has a different vibration rate. And that goes with many, many different factors. But there is an energy to every single gemstone. When you talk about stabilizing turquoise, it generally doesn't change the physical or chemical composition of that gemstone. So I don't think it would really affect the metaphysical properties, but again, I am no expert in that. Remember what they're doing when they're stabilizing, whether it is a Zachery method or whether it is something that uses the resins to infuse into the turquoise. The idea is turquoise is a very porous mineral, and if you don't fill those pores with something, then it's going to be much, much more brittle, and it would absorb the oils in your skin. So I guess that turquoise would be having those pores filled anyway, so I really don't think that having turquoise stabilize should affect the metaphysical properties, but I would go to an expert on that if I were you. Hope that answers your question. All right, I think this is going to be the last question for episode 7 of the Q&A series, and it comes from, I love this name, House Slave 1001. I can only assume that that has something to do with COVID and how we were all kind of held hostage in our own houses. But House Slave asks, and this is from episode 4, part 1 of the 4 C's, he says, so I guess the, quote, white sapphires that my friend brought from Cambodia are actually corundum. Is that correct? Well, House Slave 1001, yes, that is correct. No quotation marks are necessary because corundum, regardless of its color, is going to be a sapphire. Unless, of course, it's red corundum, in which case it would be a ruby. So yeah, you don't have to feel bad that he brought you the white sapphires that are actually corundum, that's what a sapphire is. It is corundum. The corundum family of gemstones encompasses sapphires and ruby. And if it is any color except red, it is a sapphire. If it is red, it is a ruby. One thing I will tell you, there's some people that think there's such a thing as a pink ruby, and that's, I'm a purist. If it's any color except red, it is a sapphire. There was a time back in the day that a lot of people were trying to pass off pink sapphires as lighter colored rubies because they could get more money for it. But take it from me, I'm going to say this till the day I die. The only ruby is a red corundum, not a pink corundum. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this is episode 7 of my Q&A series. We do this every Wednesday, and it releases at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So keep those questions coming. I really do love them. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. It helps me out a great deal. It doesn't cost you anything. I know it says subscribe. It's not like the old magazine subscriptions. It's absolutely free to watch these and comment on them. So hopefully you will subscribe. I'll see you all next week for the next Q&A series. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.